Okay, hi, I am going to be doing my nuclear energy speech for Mr. McCake's public speaking class. If you see me looking down here, I'm looking at my notes and stuff, okay? Sorry for this awkward setup, but, Okay, let's start. What do you think of when I say the words nuclear energy? Are you intimidated or scared? Do explosions and nukes come to mind? Well, in reality, it's nothing to be feared. Nuclear energy is one of the cleanest, most efficient forms of energy, but there's a stigma surrounding it. Why is that? Okay, first let's talk about how nuclear energy works. Firstly, uranium atoms are split. Heat and radiation are byproducts of this reaction. The heat and radiation produced by the fission begin to heat the water that surrounds the reactor, that cools the reactor, and then the water prevents the reactor from overheating. The steam that is created from the heat and the water powers the turbines, or feeds the turbines that produce the power from the reactor. Control rods are used to absorb the free-floating neutrons released during the fission process. This keeps the reactor cool and safe and contains radiation. The reactor is also surrounded by 400 tons of steel that's 8 inches thick. So, why is there a stigma around nuclear energy? There have been about 3 very high-profile accidents that have occurred. The first is probably the most obvious, Chernobyl. That was in the USSR, or what is now Ukraine. That happened in 1986. There was 3 Mile Island, Pennsylvania, which happened right here in the US. That happened in 1979. And there was Fukushima, Japan, and that happened in 2011. So, what went wrong? Chernobyl was a result of human error and design flaws in Soviet reactors. They tried to cut corners and reduce costs, and so there were consequences for that. It also was terribly handled by the USSR. They didn't admit the full truth of the accident, and therefore could have managed the cleanup a lot better, and could have saved a lot of lives. Also, it isn't the 80s anymore, there's a lot better technology out there for nuclear energy, and we have a lot more stable and safe reactors here in the United States. Next is 3 Mile Island, which did happen in the United States. It was not nearly as bad as Chernobyl. There were no injuries or adverse health effects as a result of the accident. Some radioactive gas was released a couple days after the accident, but not enough to cause any dose above background levels to residents. Part of one reactor melted, but the other reactor remains one of the best performing units in the United States, according to the World Nuclear Association. Finally, we have Fukushima. Fukushima was a result of poor planning. Who builds a nuclear power plant on a fault line and then doesn't take the precautions to, reduce the risks of that? So there was an earthquake and then a tsunami that followed, and as a result, their power supply was compromised at the plant. Therefore, this led to no cooling in the reactor, which led to the melting down of 3 reactor cores. There are standards to mitigate the risks of tsunamis. The people who built the plant did not apply these standards, sadly, according to the New York Times. So that was definitely another case of human error causing a huge accident that didn't need to happen. Okay, so next, now let's talk about why nuclear energy is actually good. First, we have a lot more new technology coming out that is very, very safe, such as the molten salt reactor. This is extremely safe because it will not be deterred by a loss of electricity. So things that happened in Fukushima, where they lost power and therefore couldn't cool the reactor, wouldn't happen in this case because they don't need electricity to cool the reactor here. Also, in nuclear energy, the pros outweigh the cons, in my opinion. It is more expensive, but you get a lot more out of it. Nuclear power plants can run uninterrupted for 1 to 2 years, which means that you don't have to refuel them. So you can use the same uranium over and over and over again for 1 to 2 years, or plutonium, or, whatever. Waste is also less than energy such as coal, natural gas, and oil. It's much better for the earth. Oil fracking absolutely destroys land, creates sinkholes and earthquakes. And you wouldn't have to have that problem with nuclear energy. It's also very versatile. A little under 100 ships or subs in our Navy have nuclear reactor cores powering them. So this shows that it can be used for other applications and not just for land. Powering cities and things like that. It's also one of the most cleanest forms of energy. So transportation pollution here is considerably less than other energies because you don't have to refuel for so long. And then wasted uranium can be put into a breeder reactor, which can basically recycle it and combine it with neutrons and create energy that way. So in conclusion, nuclear energy is nothing to be feared. All of these accidents could have been avoided, and I believe in it, and you should too. Thank you.